All right, everyone. Great to see everyone on board here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, Miami edition. Canes and the Clemson Tigers, of course, wrapping it up. And because I switched to Alabama Ole Miss a few minutes ago, I believe it's still 28-10. I am going to check out the numbers as we stand. Of course, I'm going to the live chat. Want to take your phone calls as well, 860-325-3687. And you can see I've not changed the set since we talked to Oklahoma and Texas hours and hours and hours ago. 35-17 Clemson. No, it was 35-10. I switched it off and went to the Bama Ole Miss game after the Trevor Lawrence keeper for the touchdown and the altercation between Trevor and Gilbert Frierson. That was the last play that I saw. And since then, Miami scored a touchdown, probably an offensive touchdown, I would assume. The first time the Canes have scored an offensive touchdown in this game. The other one, of course, coming at the end of the first half to get them back in the ball game at 21-10 on the blocked field goal. So, of course, if we would change the rules to football and we were having some kind of a blocked field goal contest, then Miami would have been a slam dunk winner in this one. They would have dominated this game, went 3-0. But as it stands, we got to play the full football game with the offense and the defense included, and Clemson dominated pretty much the entire way. 35-17, not necessarily indicative of the dominance of Clemson, but we'll go through it with you, whether you're a Miami fan, Clemson fan. All college football fans are welcome. At the same time, on our main channel, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, our main channel right now, in just a few minutes, you can catch Florida State Notre Dame post with our Florida State boys, Logan Robinson, James Coleman, and, of course, Jason Parker as well. I'll probably kick on over there as well to analyze the rest of the college football day after they're done. But, of course, we're talking Clemson and Miami right here. All right, let's get to it. Got to check out your comments first. We knew this one was going to be a whole lot of fun, and not necessarily that the game was that entertaining, but of course the comments are entertaining because we can always go back and look at all the comments that were made out throughout the week and who can beat the chest, and then who are the other people that have to crawl under a rock. And that's what's fun about college football, and that's what's fun about making predictions and projections and sticking up for your team. My take on this one going in, and you guys have heard it a million times in different ways, but was that Clemson didn't prove anything in the first three games about their legitimacy, playing Wake Forest, the Citadel, and Virginia. But Clemson playing the last three games, plus the last 5 years, and knowing who Dabo Swinney and Brent Venables are, and the coaching staff as a whole, Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, Amari Rogers, James Skalski, we could go through the defense, knowing the personnel on the roster, the culture, that they're an elite team. They didn't have to prove that going into this game. They had nothing to prove. Miami, of course, had something to prove, and I overestimated the Canes a bit. I didn't give them much of a chance in this game at about 15% was my estimate, that the Canes had a 15% chance of winning this game, and I'll stay with that, 85-15. I actually picked Clemson only to win this game by 10 points. And so I was taking actually, I would love to see the Canes tack on a touchdown and get within the point spread, because in my predictions, I took Miami and the points. I thought that the Miami offense, there were four factors really going into this game that I felt much better about Miami than I have in past years. The athleticism, the talent on the roster, the ability to play football is top 15 to 20 in the country. So there's one big difference that was substantiated, if not even more so, that Clemson is top 3 talent and Miami is top 15 to 20 talent. So there is a talent gap. Liken it to what we see in the SEC between a Georgia and Tennessee. what we see in the Big Ten between Ohio State and Michigan, or Ohio State and Wisconsin. But there were four main components to this Miami team that I liked better. Number one, De'Ara King at quarterback. Best Miami quarterback since Brad Kaya or before. Rhett Lashley calling the plays. I had seen examples of Rhett Lashley's play calling, setting up defenses and burning the defense. Not just Miami athleticism and ability, but Lashley's play calling and tempo. Well, they couldn't get the tempo going. Point number three that I liked Miami better in this edition was because they had a field goal kicker. And if it came down to I didn't think that this game was going to come down to a field goal, but future games that have been losses in recent seasons because of poor special teams play, that Borregales would be a difference. Not again necessarily tonight, but in future games that could win a game or two for the Canes. And point number four is that this Miami team didn't just win the games against UAB, Louisville, and Florida State. For as bad as those teams are, and they continue to substantiate that, actually Florida State showed a pulse tonight based on the score and based on them jumping out to a 17-14 lead in South Bend against probably the second best team in the ACC, unless North Carolina has something to say about that. That Miami dominated those teams. They stomped on those teams. So that was encouraging coming into this game, that Miami was different. The Canes may turn out to be a really good football team this season, but right now they look like a fringe top 25 team. All right, let's get to the comments. We can talk Travis Etienne. We can talk Trevor Lawrence, and certainly they are dynamic players. Etienne is one of the best backs in the history of college football. He's one of the best backs, certainly in the ACC in history. And Trevor Lawrence is a transcendent, great quarterback. Clemson won this game because they dominated at the point of attack, offensively and defensively. People were concerned about Clemson's defense. Even their own fans were concerned about their defense, and their defense was just overwhelming in this game. All right, let's get to your comments. Scorpio Kane, reality finally is synced in the delusional of my fan base. I appreciate any fan base that shows up after the game, regardless of the result. I have tremendous respect for everybody. Just as a person, that's how I live my life. But in addition to that, for those people that step up and just realize that this is not an indictment on anybody's integrity or value as a person. We're football fans. We're college football fans that love our team. And you know what? Some people get to root for really good teams or great teams, and other people have to root for, because they choose to, and they stay loyal to average teams or horrible teams or whatever. And then it's fun to trash talk and to hold your team over the other team. But when it comes down to it, is this really a reflection on people's self-worth? Well, if it is, then we're really messed up. Luke, all the delusional Miami fans about to blame the refs. Ronan, I'm only here to keep my word to Jordan. Ronan, we appreciate your contribution. You know that. We love your comments here, your contribution. We hope you're not too down on your team. We understand that this is difficult as a football fan. I don't take these losses nearly as hard as I did when I was 20 years old. So it doesn't much matter to me at this point in my life in terms of wins and losses. Sure, there are certain losses that still sting, but they're about a fraction, a tiny fraction of what they were years ago. I just enjoy college football. I enjoy the competition on the field. And the more I do this, the more I enjoy the interaction and the breakdown, the analysis, the discussion, the debate, and the interaction with you, more so than I love the football, but not as much as I did 20 or 25 years ago. And certainly am not tied to these results, as I see Alabama's put up 63 with Najee Harris having what I would guess to be a career night. He's got about 400 yards rushing in this game. I'm just kidding. He's got to have 150 to 200. Ronan, Luke Walker, you made hard work of Virginia Tech. Pipe down, son. Virginia Tech's pretty good, and they were missing 15 players. I don't know how to rate and evaluate that game. Certainly Virginia Tech and Miami have been on the same plane for quite some time. I think we need to put this in order. Well, we've got that matchup taken care of. That was earlier in the day. We're talking more Bama, Ole Miss. Since we've got all the helmets here, Miami, Clemson. I guess I can't fit 4 across the way here, unfortunately. So whatever it is, that's pretty much what it is right there. Okay. All right. Yeah, Virginia Tech and Miami certainly. Well, Virginia Tech's actually been better than Miami since Miami's taken a dip the last 15 years. Virginia Tech's had much better seasons overall. All right. D. Hernandez. We're giving them this game with 100+ penalties. Baker needs to sell his house tonight. I said he wasn't defensive coordinator material last season, and I've seen nothing to change my mind. Thank you for the contribution, Ronan. I believe that came in from you. Tonight stings, but going to keep supporting this great channel. Time to come back next week. Keep up the great work, Mark. Yeah, the season's not over. The Wholesome One told us that the other day. There have been teams in the past that have lost to the team that they would eventually play in the conference championship game and took care of business the second time. This has happened many times. Now, I don't necessarily think this is Miami's year to do that, but I think a successful year for Miami is exactly what I predicted it to be at the beginning. 8-3, then you go to a decent bowl game, and we'll see from there how many bowl games there are going to be anyway. But the bowl game gets played, and you go 9-3. That'd be a nice season. You can still make the conference championship game. But Ronan, thank you so much for the contribution. It is so much appreciated, especially concerning the situation I'm in right now, because this is it. This is what I've got going for all of you. So thank you so much for that. And I'll get these super chats posted to the screen. Valdez, this loss was not about talent or depth. Clemson has better X's and O's guys than Miami, period. Yeah, that's an interesting comment, Valdez. That's an interesting comment. I don't know that Clemson doesn't have better talent or depth. I would think, here's my thought on that. I think it's a combination, which is easy to say. You're going full player development, X's and O's. The Miami coaching staff is just not up to the level of Clemson's coaching. I got to think it's a combination, because the one thing that I keep pointing to is we know that Trevor Lawrence is going to be one of the top picks in the NFL draft. And Deandre King is not at that level. He's a very good college quarterback. We also know that Travis Etienne is one of the top backs in the history of the conference, if not college football. We also, if you just watch the two lines play, if you just watch the Clemson offensive line against the Miami D-line, for as good as the Miami D-line is, and then if you just watch the inverse, especially the Miami O-line against the Clemson D-line, again, we get caught up in all the peripheries of the playmakers because they're fun to watch, and sure, they make a huge difference. But, man, football still comes down to what's going on at the line of scrimmage, and the orange push was always better and more aggressive than the white push. Bama won this game. I'm sure Nick Saban's not too happy about it, though, being a defensive-minded guy. 63-49, I believe, the final. 63-48. But, again, thank you so much for the contribution. John, SEC needs to find some defense. Only Georgia can keep scores below 100. I know. It's crazy, isn't it? Look at what's happened to LSU, which a lot of people predicted to a certain extent that LSU would come down from being the best team in the country to maybe typical LSU standards or maybe something below that. But, man, they lost to Missouri. They lost to Mississippi State, and then Mississippi State can't even score against Kentucky. That is unfathomable to think about. We gave Mike Leach all this credit 2 weeks ago because they went to Death Valley and rung up 600 plus yards passing, and then 2 consecutive weeks they lose to Arkansas and get shut out by Kentucky. I don't know what the final was. They scored a safety on defense, but I consider that a shutout because you didn't score on offense. All right. What was your record for your picks this week? I'm going to focus on Miami and Clemson just because we're on the Miami channel, but I'll get you the record here real quick. Again, I'm sure the Clemson and Miami fans want to talk about this game. I'm sure especially the Miami fans want to talk about this game. Oh, let's see what the record was this week. Are you talking about against the spread? Wasn't anything great, but let's see what it was. We were 27-17 against the spread coming into this week. And my picks, here they are. Give me a second. They're loading. Took Texas A&M +5, that's 1-0. Took Virginia Tech +3, that's 1-1. Took LSU to cover 14, that's 1-2. Took Texas -2.5, that's 1-3. Took Georgia to cover 12.5, that's 2-3. Took Texas San Antonio with the 34.5, that's 3-3. Took Texas Tech plus the 12, that's 3-4. Took Auburn to cover 14, that's 3-5. Took Miami with the 15.5, that's 3-6. Alabama to cover 24, that's 3-7. Notre Dame to cover the 21. They freaking couldn't get it in the last few seconds of the game at the 2-yard line. What's that, 3-7? Kentucky to cover 3. I believe they did. They were up 12. I'm going to guess on that one. I believe would be 4-7. Took Boston College with the 6.5. So that would be 5-7. And then also took Kansas State with a 9.5, and they won straight up against TCU. Bad week at 6-7 against the spread. It appears. I'll have to double check the final scores. There you go. 6-7 against the spread. Went against my own edict of making sure that I picked 2 to 3 to 4 upsets, straight upsets. That's the better quarterback than Sam Howell. All right, Luke. It's blocking too. A lot of blocking involved, a lot of protection involved there. But I got you. Sam Howell, at least when I was watching him play, I know this was before the Hokies comeback. This was first half 35-14 before they had some issues on offense in the third quarter. Woo! They looked good. Yes, the Clemson linebackers are mighty slow. Mighty slow. They just take really long strides. I think that's it. They're slow, but they take really long strides. D. Hernandez, can't win when you give up over 100 yards in penalties. Can't win after doing a lot of things that Miami couldn't do in that game, like block. 7-4, Kane, we aren't a bad team. We just aren't on Clemson's level yet. And that's an honest assessment, and that's right there. No, Miami's not a bad team, depending on what you consider to be a bad team, but I don't consider Miami to be anything close to a bad team. Luke, Miami didn't prove anything beating Florida State, Louisville, and UAB. No. I don't know that North Carolina's proven anything to date by beating the teams that they've beaten. We could say the same thing, and I think North Carolina is a very good team. I think North Carolina is one of probably the 15 to 20 best teams in the country. Once we get the Big Ten and the Pac-12 involved, we're not quite that good. I'll have to see more. But I've not been impressed with North Carolina. Today was the best team that they've beaten this year, at least based on projections coming into the season. And they broke free sometime in the fourth quarter. Those two teams are going to play. So Luke and any other North Carolina fans, Luke, bring in your North Carolina fans. You got any friends, buddies? Got to bring them on in here. Really, that goes for everybody. Need your help. Bring on your friends and family and your college football acquaintances out there on social media, but especially you, Luke. We'll talk more North Carolina football and break down the heels if you can get some folks in here. D. Hernandez on Blake Baker. Be interesting to hear what our guys say this week. Cam Underwood, Wholesome One, and the like. Got another super chat. I'll catch up with it. I appreciate it so much. Luke picked Clemson by 21, so I'm looking pretty good. D. Hernandez again. There's a coaching gap. Series is tied at 6. Okay. Taylor, what's up with Mississippi State? Do they not do offense there? Notre Dame, 2, not covering the spread to the bum-ass Seminoles. Yeah, when teams don't cover the spread, who cares? They don't care. We care. We care. We put some money down or are making predictions. We care, but Notre Dame doesn't care. They were clearly the better team. Yeah, it would have been nice for me. That would have helped my record. That would have swung me to 7-6. And that's the prediction / betting game right there. That would have swung me in the win column. That last second touchdown. Jordan, Canes thought because Virginia got a little more points than expected, that meant our defense ain't elite. And I made the observation on Twitter tonight that based on what I've seen, which is quite a lot, is that Georgia and Clemson have been the 2 most impressive defenses in the country to me. I believe they're the 2 best defenses, at least from the teams that are playing. Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State might have something to say about that. They would be the 3 defenses. And Wisconsin lost a ton. But Wisconsin always has one of the 10 best defenses in the country. Birmingham, Kane, too many penalties on Miami. Also, that didn't help. Todd B, we're all the Miami fans. Hopefully we'll have more. We've got 77 in here. And again, if you want to check out Notre Dame and Florida State talk, my guys, Logan Robinson, Jason Parker, and Big Game James Coleman are over on my main channel. Let's see if they're up there right now. So go give them a like. If you want to go make fun of the Noles or hype up Notre Dame or talk college football over there, they should be on by now. I believe. Maybe not. They should be coming up soon. All right. John, Odell Beckham called Travis Etienne a smooth criminal on Twitter tonight. I gotcha. I just heard that term watching an Elvis video today, actually, or yesterday. There was a guy that would, look the part to be using. I'm not the kind of guy that would be calling somebody a smooth criminal. I would look like a moron. But somebody that would, I think you know what I'm saying. All right. Luke, we love you being here. You can take on these Miami fans. You're funny. I'd like to mix it up. Okay, Todd, where are Miami fans saying Clemson D-line was weak? 5 sacks. And, beyond the sacks, look at that play that I know we're talking D-line here, but James Skowski made on the 4th and 1 play when Skowski got under the guard and just blew up Jalen Knighton. That was a tremendous play, tremendous hit. Just did a beeline to the ball carrier. That was phenomenal. Late ESJP, appreciate you being here. There's no shame in your team losing. We all root for teams and they lose games. All right, Jason Davis, we got beat, but anyone that thinks officiating was good, you clearly wasn't watching the game. Okay. I didn't necessarily see anything that was that egregious that the officials missed in this game. You could maybe point that out to me. I thought Dabo I thought Dabo did Miami a huge favor by going for that field goal, and it was even almost predictable. Not that that would have been brought back, but that it was too much of a risk to take versus the reward. Up 21-3, going for a 62-yard field goal. Is that what it was? I know his kicker can get the job done, but I'm watching that thinking, you need to measure the risk versus the reward. And if it's being talked about by Kirk Herbstreit, it's going through my mind. It's got to be going through Miami's mind that this could come back and we could do something here. Sure enough. The yardage and the statistical difference at halftime was staggering. Clemson had 21 first downs, Miami 3. Rushing 243 to 37. Total yardage, Clemson 302, Miami 79. Yeah, I did not see any bad calls in the game. There are always going to be somewhat questionable calls in any football game, especially regarding the judgment type calls of holding, both in regards to in the secondary and holding at the line of scrimmage. There are always going to be questionable. You could go back and forth. And the officials have an impossible job to do when it comes to that. It's like calling fouls in the NBA. D. Hernandez, Miami's O-line has been shit for years, ever since Mark Richt let Art Kehoe go. This is the first time I've seen you on the channel. Appreciate you hopping on. Don't want to misidentify your name there. I guess it's late ESJP, but appreciate you jumping on board. And yeah, you got a ways to go. Miami's building. They look better than they did last year thus far. Again, so they've beaten 3 teams that aren't very good, but they lost to teams that weren't very good last year. Duke, FIU, Georgia Tech. 3 of their 7 losses last year were to teams that were bottom 40 or 50 teams in the FBS. And the other games they lost were Virginia Tech, whoever else they lost to. I'm not going to go through all the losses, but you know the point. They're beating the teams that they're supposed to beat thus far. And so that's a step in the right direction. Dante, this is a clear indicator that Miami staff isn't on Clemson's level. UVA put up a better fight with less talent. But that's been going on for years, not with necessarily UVA, but other teams in the Atlantic Division with less talent playing better than Miami in certain years. Look at how many years in the last 10 that Georgia Tech's been better than Miami. That Georgia Tech's been going to ACC championship games with not as good a talent. In terms of the recruiting rankings, Pitt the same thing on occasion. North Carolina, when Larry Fedora was there, and certainly before that. Virginia Tech, of course. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Mark, man, it's Deandre. How you doing?
Deandre, what's going on, man?
Good, man. Hey, look, I heard what you said. Somebody said that UVA put up a better fight. I was trying to tell people last week. Clemson did not play Tyler Davis, that game against UVA. Xavier Thomas came back tonight. I know he wasn't a factor, but Clemson wasn't trying. They were playing a lot of players. I'm not saying they weren't trying to win, but they were out counting them. And that's what I was trying to tell them. And if you go back and look at Miami and Louisville game, right? Louisville left those guys wide open. Those tight ends just running down the field. And look at what Georgia Tech did against Louisville. And I kept telling people, I said, y'all got to look at all the games that these guys play. I'm not saying Miami was a terrible program. I'm just saying you just got to look at the game. UVA did it to them, too.
Yeah, Miami fans, just like other fan bases, just need to know where they are. And right now, they are I thought they were roughly a top 15 team. They might not be quite that good, but there's something in that range, 15 to 25, and that's where they are. But they've got a lot to make up. And we focus so much on the skill position players. And obviously you've got maybe the best quarterback in the country, maybe the best running back in the country. But man, all you had to do was watch your offensive line against their defensive line. And that's with, as you well know, your 4 starters that went to the NFL or went to the next level from last year's team, and then watch your D-line against their O-line. There was no comparison between those two matchups. You just moved the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball consistently.
Yeah, and I saw that happen. And if I'm as a Clemson fan, what you should be worried about is the receivers. I know Rogers had good tight end Galloway, but I can't remember his name, number 2. Latson. He ran past the Miami player and missed the catch when they had a chance to really put it away. And that's what I'll be talking about. Like, there are things that Clemson's not good at, and that's one of the areas that we should look at. Where you look at for Clemson weaknesses, and when they go play against somebody like Alabama or Ohio State. And Ohio State has a great secondary, or Alabama has some great secondary people. What are you going to do against them? That's what you should be worried about if you're a Clemson fan. That's what I'd be looking at. I mean, Andre Booth is as good as they say. I mean, I was like, where's this guy at last year? And, now he shows up this year. I'm like, damn, that dude is really good. And I was worried about their secondary, and I was telling Bobby and Pete that. I'm worried about their secondary. Clemson secondary. Yeah. But they showed them something tonight.
I enjoyed watching Brandon Spector play.
Yes. He's like a Hunter Winfrey part 2. But taller.
Yeah.
Man, can you imagine that Clemson scored on the same play that they did on the opening play they did a couple years ago? 2015 with Watson and Leggett.
Okay.
The first play I had said that on Twitter. I was like, "Dad, that's the same play they scored on a couple years ago in 2015."
Wow. Okay.
But okay, Mark, you have a great night, man, and hope to catch you later.
I appreciate it, Deandre. Have a good one.
All right.
Our man Deandre, big Clemson fan, loves the ACC, college football. We talk 80s and 90s all the time. We have a good time. Appreciate everybody jumping on here to talk college football, talk Miami. Wanted to recap the game with all of you, of course. We pour a ton into the Miami content here and also at the main channel, MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. So we hope that you will join both and subscribe to both. And that way you turn on the bell, hit the notifications, and you get them to know when we go live and drop videos. Major coaching gap. So some people are pointing to the coaching, some people are pointing to the refs, some people are pointing to the talent gap. Yeah, Miami made some false start penalties that hurt. It started on the first drive. At least the first Clemson offensive series, of course, when Miami could have gotten off the field. That's my very first note of the game. Quincy Roche offsides on the play that he almost made the great play where he dropped into coverage on the right sideline, almost made the diving interception, but he was lined up offsides. And then you give Clemson new life when you were going to get off the field and it's 4th and 4 and it turns into a first down. And before you know it, Braden Galloway's in the end zone and it's 7-0. Braden Galloway is a horse, man. That boy is built. He is a monster. I would not want to get in his way in the open field. It looks like O.J. Howard coming at you. Valdez, thank you again for the Super Chat contribution. This loss was not about talent or depth. Again, Clemson has better X's and O's guys than Miami, period. I think it's a combination. Valdez is pointing at the coaching. Dante, saying congrats to Jordan. Not that you were that worried. Miami's long way to go before our staff is ready to match wits with Dabo and company. John, will Miami improve enough to give North Carolina a game at the end of the season? Let's understand, John, that North Carolina has not played Clemson. And don't point to the game last year in which they came within 1 point. That was a single game. So let's understand that North Carolina has shown some issues as well. I'm not necessarily separating Miami and North Carolina based on that performance. And when I point that way, I'm pointing at the TV. That's just how I think. That game I watched on that thing right over there, I didn't see a whole lot of North Carolina this afternoon. I had 4 games on at noon that I really wanted to see, and they broke free early, so I lost focus. And then Virginia Tech, before I knew it, was back in 42-37 before North Carolina just completely put them away. Let's see. Had a couple targeting calls that took Amari Carter and out of the game. Somebody late in the game didn't really factor into the game, but Amari Carter leaving early didn't help, of course. Len Morris, Murray, I still love my University of Miami. We went out. Great game. Yeah, I never understood maybe you're going to do it a couple times a season, maybe. But these guys that line up, I know you're trying to get an edge. I know you're trying to get as much of an edge up front, that if you're that much closer to the ball than you would have been, then you can get that angle, that surge. And it's one of those things you want to be right where you are. You can relate that to a lot of different things in sports. Batters standing at the back, planting their back foot behind the line in the batter's box because they want that extra tiny split second of bat speed against a fastball, or to be able to see the break on a breaking ball. If you're a server in tennis, you stand that far behind the line so you can serve and you're as close to the opponent as possible to get, most of those tennis players are like 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", and they can get that downward arc. Defensive linemen in football, the closer you line up to the line of scrimmage, the quicker you can get through a gap or get into that chest or body of an offensive lineman. But that Nesta Silvera play in which he was lined up offsides, oh my goodness, when they took the wide angle, you usually have to be like, yeah, he's offsides. He was like overlapping the Clemson offensive line helmets. All right. I tried to tell some of these Canes fans to temper their expectations. Valdez, again, appreciate that. Does Virginia have better talent than Miami? No. Last year they had a better team, though. But what happened when Miami, for as bad as Miami looked many times, not just like one game, usually good teams, not the great teams, usually the good teams, when I say a good team, like Minnesota last year, Iowa, teams like that, what Tennessee looks to be this year, they usually look really bad one game, maybe throughout the season, and let down against somebody. Miami, of course, let down a number of times. But when they played Virginia head-to-head, who won the game? And it was pretty decided. Not a blowout, but it was pretty decided. Miami was the better team than Virginia when they got on the same field last year. But over the course of the season, which team was more consistent, made less mistakes, beat the teams they were supposed to beat, did what they were supposed to do? Virginia. But Miami's got the better talent. And especially this year. King should have ran more. Well, he certainly had the one great run that gave them a little bit of life. I was surprised, and this is also a credit to the Clemson defensive front and the pass rush, because King didn't have a whole lot of time most of the time, but when he did, that he just couldn't find anybody. And Miami playmakers, once they caught the ball, didn't make moves on anyone. They got wrapped up and dropped. Austin Canes, we just played the best quarterback and best running back in college. Not surprised we lost. Didn't think we'd win on to Pitt. Austin, good perspective. You did play the best quarterback in college football, most likely. Justin Fields is close, but Trevor's probably the guy. And best running back. I think he is. Chuba Hubbard. Journey Brown's a really good one. Michael Carter had a nice game for North Carolina, and he's been around for a while. Najee Harris, but I think, Etienne. I would take Etienne over all those guys. Yeah. What would be disappointing for me as a Miami fan is that it wasn't close. I said going into the game that I didn't expect Miami to win. It wouldn't have surprised me, shocked me had they won. I still said a number of times to a number of you, and I understand you didn't understand it, that I said, if Miami wins a close game, I'm still going to think Clemson's a better team over the course of a season. But it wasn't a close game, of course. But I was expecting Miami to be more competitive. I thought that this would be a competitive game going into the fourth quarter. And it really, once it got to really at 14-zip, again, you have to understand who's in the lead and who's trailing. If you're trailing Virginia Tech 14-0 and you're Miami, well, that's not a good situation, but you can come back. But Clemson's not blowing 14-0 leads. They just don't. So even at 14-0, even though it was really early, I thought, this one's probably over. As we watched the Florida State Notre Dame highlights, Tamori Terry with the play there, and Florida State was up 17-14. And then it came apart. Todd B., it's funny, Miami fans saying Clemson has no D-line, not like their D-line, etc. Did we see some of these comments already? Something's wrong with my feed here. Scorpio Kane, it's damn Clemson. They've been in the playoffs since it started. Pretty much. Off by 1 year, but we get the point. 1-2 at the championships. Yeah. They're one of the gold standards of college football. It pretty much goes in order of Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, in which Alabama has been the gold standard for a number of reasons, most notably Nick Saban and winning national championships since 2009, but Clemson and Ohio State in terms of consistent winning. There's no shame in losing this game. You know what you need to do to get better, and that's recruit offensive linemen. That would be my first suggestion. Get on those offensive linemen. Also, Miami needs to find a great quarterback. That's not a knock on Deandre King. Deandre King could win a conference championship. He's good enough. If he had the right ability around him and the right offensive line. But Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, those kind of guys. Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield. If you get one of those guys, then it becomes a lot easier. And that's what concerns me about Miami recruiting, for as good as it's been. Doesn't seem like you guys are in the running. Miami's in the running for a top quarterback. KJ Costello got benched. This is what frustrates me about college football. I want to see every game because I want to be able to get on here and be educated to talk about everyone, which I am as much as I possibly can be. But I've been watching college football. I've been watching football today since noon, so almost for 12 hours nonstop. And there's so much I want to see. Like, I want to go back and watch the North Carolina Virginia Tech game, the Kentucky Mississippi State game, and a bunch of other games So probably now that this is what I do. This is what I do all the time. If you're not aware, I quit my job this week after 19 years. Quit my job, let it go. This is what I'm doing all the time. So I've got to feed myself, and I need your backing. So to that point, I am full throttle here, and that will give me more time to build this up, but also break down the content and deliver it to you. I had a lot of interesting ideas today of content that I could deliver each and every week that you might find interesting. We'll see. We'll get it out there first and get your reaction. All right. I better get through these comments. You guys are going back and forth. I'm not going to get into that. Clemson covered. 247 Canes, whoever says ETN was who beat us clearly doesn't know football. I can agree with that comment in general. Travis Etienne certainly is one of the best backs, if not the best. I believe the best, as it was stated earlier in the chat, back in college football. But the lines of scrimmage on both sides were dominated by Clemson. Adam, the sports guy, Clemson took this game very seriously, came out to make a statement, and did. Hats off to them. Miami needs to focus on next week and get back on track. No pouting and turning one loss into 3. Good point, Adam, sports guy. You got out there. You didn't play your best. I'm sure every man in that Miami locker room believes that they're better than that, but they can't do anything about it. So you refocus, you line up, you go with the next opponent, and you hope that you get another shot at some point. Regardless, it can still be a successful season. Lost in the trenches, Brawley Beams. I'm saying the same thing. So 247 Canes and D. Hernandez need to get together on Blake Baker. We need to have them both on. 247 Canes, you can come on, and D. Hernandez, you can come on, and you guys can discuss the attributes of Blake Baker. Hansel Perez takes a very optimistic look here that just the first quarter killed the Canes. We'll get them next game. Win the games to get to the next game, meaning the ACC championship game. Pitt's going to be tough. Pitt is going to be a tough out. Pitt missed an extra point in overtime at Boston College today, but Boston College is no joke. Jeff Hafley is doing a heck of a job at Boston College. And, of course, there's a game against North Carolina that's going to be difficult as well. And if Virginia Tech gets their players back, that could be a tough one for the Canes as well. Oh, we got a call coming in.
The call will start at the beep.
Hurricane Kilo 407. Very much appreciate the comment here. I'm here, win or lose. What's up, Mark? That's the attitude. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's McD again. How are you doing?
Hey, McD, what's going on?
Pretty good. I'm happy to see that Clemson won by -14 just for betting purposes.
Yep.
I know the Clemson Miami fans aren't going to like me saying that, but I did take Clemson -14. But I don't think Miami's that bad, per se. I don't think they're terrible. I mean, granted, Clemson is an all-world team. And I still think Miami still want to get better teams. At least want to get better teams in the ACC. Probably a top 3, top 4 team in the ACC.
Yep.
It's just that Clemson kind of just had a rate of them because they're just a lot better than them. Just like they're a lot better than everybody else in the ACC.
Yeah. So what do you think, McD? We looking at a top 3 team in the country playing a top 20 to 25 team?
That's what I'm thinking.
Yep.
Because, and another good example of that was actually today's Georgia-Tennessee game. I had that game 37-14, and actually ended up
those teams actually ended up scoring another touchdown, making 44-21. But I had 37-14 because it's the same thing. Tennessee's a top 25-ish team, and Georgia is a top 5 team.
Yep.
And at best, it's just going to overblow Tennessee, and that's exactly what happened. And
Yeah, it was a good
half.
Yep, it was a good first half, and then Georgia just wore them out.
And to give Tennessee's defense credit for holding them up twice, that's tough to do against that Georgia running game on 4th and 1. So give them credit, but that game went exactly as I thought it was going to go. Ole Miss is a lot closer to Alabama than what they were last year.
Oh my
In my
goodness!
opinion, I was very happy to see some of the things I saw from that game.
Yeah, that was impressive. 42-all with 6 or 7 minutes left. It was a good game. Yeah.
Yeah, they might get away from them a little bit, but that's just a depth issue more than anything. So I'm happy to see that. Arkansas is pretty good, Mark.
They are too. I know. I was sitting here thinking maybe I need to make a video about all the downtrodden teams that are coming back and showing us something, because I don't think Georgia Tech's as good as Arkansas, but at least they're showing a little bit of life and development under Jeff Collins too.
Yeah, Georgia Tech won last night against Louisville convincingly. And then where was the other game I was watching? I would say took care of Texas Tech. That was like another 2 game, but during the 4 o'clock time slot or 3:30 time slot. But that game, I wasn't really appealed to that game.
No.
I don't like something that I watched some of the post-game press conferences for some of the earlier games.
Yep.
And I don't like what Dan Mullen said.
Oh, about the crowd?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a stupid thing to say. It's a big excuse. When you've been coaching as long as Dan Mullen, and I'm the one up here who's many times defending Dan Mullen and calling him an excellent coach, but what in the world when you're used to coaching big-time games in the SEC for how long now? Almost 15 years. And you're usually facing crowds of 80 to 100,000 people, and now you're facing a crowd of like 22,000, and you're complaining about the crowd noise?
Mm-hmm.
It's just dumb.
Yeah, I mean, it's not my fault that you went to Texas A&M and lost to them in a shootout. So I don't know. I just don't know what he was thinking saying that. But here's my issue with our receivers are too small. Is what Miami fans saying.
Yeah, I just came across that comment. Receivers are too small. So Mike Harley's not the biggest guy in the world. D. Wiggins, obviously Brevin Jordan, he's a tight end, but he might as well be a wide receiver at times. He lines up wide. So those 2 guys in particular are, I can see where I don't think necessarily those guys are too small. They just don't have one of those Seth Williams looking guys, the big body guy, to go downfield and high point the football and muscle up somebody. They have a bunch of slot and wide guys.
Yeah, I mean, when I was watching the game, in my opinion, it still would have not mattered. But when I was watching the game, it just felt they lost in the trenches. I think that's the main reason why they lost more than anything. And I mean, it's just a depth issue if you're Miami. Miami does not have the depth to go up against these top 5, 10-ish teams. The only reason they're ranked up for 7 is because not everybody has played yet.
Yeah.
So I just don't really see. 25-point loss. I mean, that's kind of expected, at least in my eyes.
Yep. Yeah.
And Notre Dame, I didn't watch any of that game, but thank you for not covering the spread and everything. I really appreciate it.
I did not appreciate that.
I was being sarcastic there.
And did you see what happened at the end of the game?
No, I didn't watch a single game.
So Notre Dame
I
won
mean,
by
single minute.
Notre Dame won by 16, as you could see. They hit the ball. They had the ball down at the 2 or 3 yard line, and they didn't run it in.
I can't really get mad at that. Just get off the field. But oh yeah. One other comment I want to make. LSU. I know why they're losing. I know exactly why they're losing.
Their defense sucks.
Well, yeah, he's the defensive coordinator.
Well, they did. Yeah, they've got Bo Pelini in there now instead of Dave Aranda.
That's the reason why he is one of the worst coaches in college football. Bo Pelini, just a tail. Doesn't even know what he's doing. Edward was wrong during his first press conference that he was embarrassed by the LSU defense. He should be embarrassed of hiring Pelini. That guy is not a good coach. If I would have known he was the defensive coordinator at the beginning of the season, I would have probably said LSU. I would probably actually said this was expected. Honestly.
To this extent, though,
that's how bad of a coach I think he is.
To this extent, though, they're getting shredded.
And I think they got Florida next week.
Yeah, they do. They do.
Supposedly their coach doesn't care about the safety of their fans, only 90,000 fans. But
he gave up 608 yards of total offense against Mizzou today.
That was similar numbers, probably. I mean, Florida's offense is pretty good.
Well, Florida's offense should be better than Missouri's.
Yeah.
Missouri, put it in this perspective. Mizzou had, I know they scored 19 against Alabama, but really against the starters, they scored 3. They had 3 in the fourth quarter against Alabama. They turn around and they score 45 and put up 600 yards on LSU.
Yeah, I mean.
And they couldn't score or put up yardage on Tennessee. They only scored 12.
I'm telling you, Bo Pelini is the issue there.
He must be. He used to be able to coach defense, though. That's how he got his Nebraska job.
What happened there?
Well, what's interesting is that Bo Pelini did a nice job at LSU in the mid-2000s and when they won the national championship with Les Miles in 2007. But coaching defense then was a completely different animal than it is now. He was coaching against 2-back offenses, pro style, throw it 18 or 20 times a game, huddle. He obviously is not adjusted. And Nebraska, when he became the head coach there, their defense went into the toilet.
Yeah, that's why the answer when you hear that there at the end. He's just not a good coach. He shouldn't be coaching college football. He shouldn't.
Well, he did a much better job at Nebraska than the next 2 guys have done.
That is true.
He was winning
He's not caused that issue.
He was winning his 9 games a year.
Yep, and according to Nebraska fans, that's not good enough, even though times have changed since 1995, that you can't really recruit in state anymore in the state of Nebraska unless you want a bunch of big old linemen. So, yeah, basically, it was a fun day of college football. Hopefully we get some good games next week, like these 12 o'clock games. And Big Ten starts 2 weeks from now, so I can't wait to see my Terps go ahead and beat up on, I forget who we're playing, but we're going to beat whoever we're playing, unless it's named Ohio State. But thanks for my call, Mark.
Thanks a lot, McD. Appreciate it.
Have a nice night.
You too. It hit me tonight in watching Ole Miss after I had watched most of the Clemson-Miami game, but watching Ole Miss tear up Alabama's defense, that if I was given the power, or any of us were given the power to create the college football schedule week to week, meaning we just watch what we watch this week, and now we can make the schedule whatever we want, and the teams would have to play whatever schedule we wanted. Wouldn't that be fascinating? We just make the schedule week to week. And of course, everybody wants to see Alabama and Ohio State play, and Clemson, and Georgia, and you want to see the powers play. But let's get beyond those kind of matchups, because those are the obvious choices. And watching Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin and Matt Corral tear up that Alabama defense tonight, I was thinking I would be fascinated now to see Ole Miss play Clemson. Mr. HD says, Manny Diaz said after the game, I've never seen it. Someone hit someone in the stomach and get called for targeting. I'd have to go back to the targeting rule. I know that it's been adjusted, and that could be part of the deal because, yes, in the past it had to do with helmet and I think it was upper shoulder contact with a player with your crown of the helmet, lowering the helmet. But I think it's now lowering the helmet on any portion of the body. Again, we'd have to go to the rule. Somebody could call up the current rule on that. But I had heard in a couple different broadcasts this year that it had been adjusted. Casey Cruz with quite the attitude. Casey, it's great to see you. Of course, Casey joins us on our Voice of College Football community on Patreon. So please join us on Patreon, where we deliver exclusive live streams. We did a watch party today. You get all my predictions. You get the top 25 that actually makes sense, which I will probably move back online free to everyone, because that was a highlight certainly of everybody tearing up my top 25, because it's based on results, not on perception. But Casey, we appreciate your contribution. And looks like you got to, I apologize if I screw this up, because I got to blow up the picture. Got your son there in the back of the car there. Very nice. All right. Louise, I'm a Hurricane fan for life. Miami clearly hasn't been on that level since 2001. We aren't back until we win a championship. Okay. A lot of people are championship or bust people, and I get that. Adam says, if Miami is better, they'll put this behind them and take care of business moving forward. Ricky Morgan, Clemson did just what a number one team should do, and they need to change the targeting calls. Jabari Jones, do you all think that Georgia State should join the ACC? Georgia State should join the ACC. Georgia State, did they pull off some miraculous win today that I'm not aware of? Georgia State. I think they are clearly the Sun Belt level type team. Discipline. Got a good point, Ray. Discipline. Got a good point. Got a great point. We haven't addressed the disciplinary issues on this team in regards to football discipline. I'm not talking about that they need to be choir boys. Football discipline. Kenny, Chris, good analogy there as a midterm exam. It's a midterm. It's almost like a first quarter grade, first semester. Or really, if you break it down into quarters, this would be the first quarter. This is your fourth game out of 11, 12 with a possible conference championship game or a bowl game. Sir, fearing Pangborn. Let's forget about Clemson. Think about Pitt. Take your frustrations out on Pitt next week. That's going to be a difficult game. Get ready for Pitt. A lot of you smart Miami fans are saying that. Get ready for Pitt. Almost everybody in college football loses at least one game every year. There were only 3 teams that went undefeated last year, and that was a lot. Usually there's 1, maybe 2 that go undefeated in the regular season. So that means everybody else that are still competing for championships, look through the college football playoff era. In 2014, 3 of them that made the playoff out of 4 had losses. In 2015, 3 out of the 4 had losses. In 2016, 3 of the 4 had losses. In 2017, all 4 had losses. In 2018, 2 of the 4 had losses. In 2019, 1 of the 4 had losses. More than half the field in the college football playoffs have losses. So you're going to lose. Yeah, Mark Pope has been disappointing. There is no question about that. Adam saying that hopefully Deandre King comes back next year. He's a good quarterback to build under. Then you get a great quarterback and take the next step, and you also get the full advantage of a spring camp together with all the personnel, all the guys together, where they can kind of kick back from the competition and actually take in the offense, learn the offense together. This obviously was not the ideal offseason. And you've got, even though most of the team has been together, and obviously Manny Diaz knows the culture and knows the environment and knows the locker room and knows everything, having been there before, and now his second season. But having a new starting quarterback and a new offense with a new offensive coordinator, yeah, it would be great for Miami, for you as Canes fans, to see your quarterback come back next year and be able to take in a full off season of prep with the terminology, with the system, really sit down with Lashley and really pull it all together and really just make it his own. Ricky, thank you so much for the contribution. I appreciate it. You need to predict better about Miami. Me? Does that mean you're wanting me to predict Miami to win games so that they actually win them? You think that I've got the power to predict a winner? I'm the one who picked Miami to go 9-3 2 years ago, and they went 7-5. Then picked them to go 8-4 last year, and I took a beating here from all of you, or many of you. I shouldn't say all of you, from many of you, that I would be so pessimistic to pick Miami just to go 8-4 last year, and you went 6-6. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Well, Mark Rogers, the cream rises to the top, I think.
It usually does.
It usually does. No, you know what? You pick chalk, you get chalk. You get the 4 best teams, talent-wise. You get Georgia, you get Clemson, you get Ohio State, you get Alabama. You recruit the best, you get the best, I guess. Is that pretty much what it comes down to, I think?
I think if you could summarize college football in 2 statements, I think you nailed it.
Right, yeah. It used to be like, you win national championships in February. I guess the early signing period means now you win them in, November or December.
That's what it comes down to. These teams that are winning national championships over and over, and the teams that contend, are far and away above everybody else. And then we see a team in Oklahoma that's more down in that 8 to 12 range in recruiting, which has been, for some mystical reason, they have developed players better than, and coached them better, and coached games better than Texas. That even though Texas has the better talent, so Oklahoma's dominated that conference, but then when they step into the arena of the college football playoff, they are certainly have shown not up to the challenge. Yeah, it's a 4-team sport right now until proven otherwise.
Well, the only thing that will crack the code, like with LSU last year, is they had the better quarterback than everybody. So I mean that's the difference maker. If you go back to 15 and 16, when Clemson and Alabama probably played each other, Alabama probably had a better overall roster than Clemson. But where was Clemson better than Alabama at?
Absolutely. Yep.
Right?
Absolutely.
They had the better quarterback. That's not even close. Jalen Hurts versus Deshaun Watson. That's not even close.
No, it's not. And in the 15 games, so you had in the first national championship game between the two, you had Jay Coker against Deshaun Watson, and that's not close. But Alabama had the best roster in college football, or you could say Ohio State was right there, one of the two best.
Right.
And Clemson probably had maybe the sixth or seventh best roster, but they had the best quarterback in the country. And they had to score a touchdown in the closing seconds to make it a 5-point game. They basically lost the game by 2 scores. And then they came back the next year. I'm sorry, David. Then they came back the next year, of course, as you well know. And Deshaun Watson had to play out of his mind again. But they had an improvement in talent. And Jalen Hurts wasn't the passer that Jay Coker was, and only went 13 for 31, if memory serves me correct, in that game. And there's your difference. Alabama had the better roster. Clemson had a much better quarterback comparison. Plus, they had upgraded just enough with the downgrade in Alabama passing to just eke out a win on the last play of the game.
Sure. Well, that's why, what happened with Alabama for so long a period of time, the only teams that were beating were teams with better quarterbacks, like Cam Newton in 2010, Johnny Manziel in 2012.
Yep.
Those were the teams that were beating them. Deshaun Watson, 2016. I would say the only time they ran into a roster that was probably more talented than theirs might be the 2014 Buckeyes.
Yeah.
If you want to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if you ask Nick Saban, what's the most talented football team you've ever played against? He might say 2014 Ohio State. Do you think that's a fair statement?
They'd certainly be in the top few. Those Florida teams, those LSU teams in the mid-2000s were tremendous, of course. The only aberration I can see to your formula of great quarterbacks defeating Alabama would be somehow Ole Miss put a hex on them those 2 consecutive years with really good teams, but not great teams, and not great quarterback play. Good quarterbacks, good college quarterbacks, and Chad Kelly and Bo Wallace. But Ole Miss just I think Alabama, one of those, the first of the 2, Alabama just turned it over like 18 different ways, and that helped.
Sure. Well, and I have to admit, as an Ohio State fan, I'm going to be upfront with you, and I'm an honest Ohio State fan, Mark. We probably caught Alabama in the right tier in 2014. That was not as talented an Alabama team in 2014 as they've had, in the past. To be fair to them, I don't think that was comparable to maybe like 2009, maybe 2011, or even 2012. That wasn't comparable to their previous teams. Now, that being said, I thought we were going to be a better team in 2015 than we'd be in 2014.
Sure.
That's why I was optimistic that we would repeat, because we brought the same team back in 15 that we had in 14. So once you win a national championship a year ahead of the game, that would mean you're optimistic about winning it again. That's why it kind of rivals Ohio State's 1968 team, because Woody Hayes won with sophomores in 1968, and Woody would tell you he had a better team in 69 than he had in 68. I think Urban might say the same thing about 2015,
Yep.
So, I'm going to be interested to see that game next week. Georgia has not beaten. Have they beaten Alabama in the Saban era?
No.
Okay. I didn't know if they played in 2007, Saban's first year, because I know Georgia had a good team.
Yeah,
2007.
I looked at that recently because I had the same thought, and I can double check it, but I'm almost positive I had to go back before that. Yeah, that 07 Georgia team finished in the top 5. They won the Sugar Bowl, and Nick Saban went 7-6. But I don't believe they played that year. I think you have to go back a couple years prior to that when Georgia beat Alabama.
Right. Well, Georgia's pretty much had the 3 games that were right there: 2012, 2017, and 2018. That basically cost them their chances at national championships. So I want to see it next week. How do you think that matchup looks right now? Do you have an early kind of view of that game?
Correction, David. 2007, Georgia beat Alabama 26-23.
What was that? 26 what?
26-23.
Okay. Well, that was a good Georgia team. That was Matthew Stafford, Noshawn Moreno, and
Yeah, they won the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah, they beat Hawaii up with Cole Brennan.
Yep.
Well, that was the crazy year. 2007 was insane because everybody beat everybody, and you have your first. I think that's the only national champion that ever had 2 losses, right?
The 07 LSU Tigers. Yeah.
Right. Because I can't ever remember a national champion with 2 losses. Can you?
Well, not since I've been alive, but going back to the 40s and 50s, there's a few in there.
Right. Well, that's what I meant, Mark. It's like in recent memory, I could never remember.
No.
A 2-loss team. You know. I think Georgia Tech. What's that?
Colorado really lost 2 games in 1990.
Yeah, 5th down, right, against Missouri.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they had a loss and a tie. They tied Illinois that year.
Yep.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I think it's going to be an interesting game next week. I might do that. I mean, if you're going to win a national championship, Georgia, you have to go through Alabama. They know that. And the more and more I look at it, Mark, I think we're going to get 2 SEC teams. What are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I think the SEC runner-up will probably get into the playoff, and I've said that pretty much all along, especially once the Big 12 started to lose out of conference games to the Sun Belt, and then the teams that were losing those games come into conference and beat what were supposed to be the better teams in the Big 12. Yep.
I'll give you one outside pick for the last 4th playoff team, though, Mark. And I said it to you when we talked about the Big 10 preview. Penn State would be attractive if they go 8-1 and lose like a touchdown or less game to Ohio State. That could be close. What do you think?
Well, sure. Yeah, it could be close because right now the SEC's only played a couple weeks, and there's only 2 teams with no losses. Right?
So, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Well, they have more games, so that's going to be the tough part.
Yeah, there's a zillion scenarios we could draw up right now.
No, I get it. I'm just saying that, I mean, because you're going to play 9 games if you're the Big 10. If a Penn State team is 8-1 with a 7-point loss to Ohio State, and Ohio State is the number 2 team in the country, let's say, I mean, there's really no disgrace in that, and that's a pretty good resume. The second best conference with an 8-1 football team, that's not bad.
Not at all.
So, well, we got a lot of football left, my friend. It's going to be interesting.
Yes, it shall be. It will be good, as it always is.
Well, it's always a pleasure talking to you, Mark.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it so much. You too.
You take care of yourself. Bye-bye.
All right, trying to get in more Miami Clemson talk. If you've got anything else to say, I will certainly take your phone calls at 860-325-3687. I've got a different application on this Miami stream, so I don't have that banner. I could build it. That's got the phone number, but again, it's 860-325-3687. And I'm going to check out my boys on the main channel because I feel obligated here, obviously, to talk Miami and Clemson. And the other college football talk should be on my other channel. Let's see if there's Florida State Notre Dame talk going on right now on the main channel. Let's see what we got here. For some reason, I don't believe they're on there, unfortunately. Let's see here. Hopefully, they've not had any issues over there. Mark. Okay, what do we got? King's not the answer. Need Jim Kelly back. Nick says his second year, he's not the guy now. Don't know what we're talking about there. Okay. Pittsburgh sports all the time. That was probably the most upsetting I have ever been after a loss, but I think we still beat the Kings next week. Yeah, Pitt losing to Boston College on a missed field goal. So there's been a few teams that have lost on missed extra points, I should say, extra point missed in overtime. Chug Mo Beer. Man, thank you so much for the Super Chat contribution. I think Miami lost the game in the trenches. Chug Mo Beer, did you just join us? That's what I've been saying for 90 minutes now. And the Miami wide receivers couldn't get any separation. Now the Canes have to make sure this loss does not affect them next week. Let's go Canes. Bingo. I would agree with both of those. I've got both of these written down. Here are my notes. Note number 1 was Quincy Roche offsides. Big play, 4th and 4 at the Miami 32. Of course, that turned a Miami stop into a Clemson first down. Then they scored the touchdown on Braden Galloway's backside screen. Brilliant play. Trevor rolls right. The offensive line stays put. They build a wall. Galloway catches it. He walks into the end zone. 7-zip. Miami's first 10 plays on offense. 6 yards, 2 penalties, 3 sacks in 10 plays. Clemson goes on an 84-yard drive. Methodical. Etienne scores. 14-zip. Trevor Lawrence to Frank Ladson. Drops it right in the bucket. Down the left sideline for about 40 yards. Ladson beats Al Blades. Bubba Bolden with blocked field goal. It's still 14-zip. De'Ara King in the pocket. Breaks contain, goes straight up the middle, 56 yards on a 3rd and 8, all the way to the Clemson 22. Got a star by Brandon Spector, played his rear end off. Braden Galloway lost in coverage on that play where they put him in motion. They lined him up as a tight end on the left as an H-back. Then they rolled him in motion to the right. Then they brought him in underneath and to the left and lost him in coverage. 6 plays, 70 yards for the touchdown, 21-3. First half again. Clemson, 21 first downs to 3. Outrushed the Canes, 243-37. Total yardage, Clemson 302, Miami 79. Second half, and Dabo, an idiot, knucklehead, dummy, best coach in college football possibly, one of the top 2, 3, but a knucklehead, and he admitted it for going for that field goal. Risk reward. Understand where you are in the game. Understand the risk reward. Understand that your team is dominating. Goes for the field goal from a zillion yards out. DJ Ivey, of course, brings it all the way back, and Harrison Hunt made the great play, 21-10. Second half, Restrepo, what is he doing? Trying to field a ball inside the 5-yard line on a punt. It's one thing, it's stupid, but it's one thing to actually try to catch a football on a punt inside the 5-yard line, but to try to pick up a rolling football inside the 5-yard line with orange bearing down on you. That was a stupid play. That was the stupidest play of the night. All right. Where are the Miami playmakers? They get tackled right on the spot. No separation. Miami had a bye week, or Miami had the bye week. Clemson did not have the bye week. It looked like Clemson had the bye week to prepare, and Miami did not. Etienne goes 72 yards. He beats a very fast defense to the corner, 28-10, 72 yards. Brevin Jordan, hopefully he's okay, hurt his shoulder. James Skalski on the play in which, again, he knifed underneath the guard and blew up the play and blew up Jalen Knight on 4th and 1 was tremendous. Bolden again with another blocked kick coming off the edge. That is amazing to be able to have that ability. And then I was done taking notes after that because it was game, set, match after that. Swampy McGee, King is the best Kings quarterback since Dorsey. Probably just because of the dimension that he gives the offense with the running ability over Brad Kaya. Pittsburgh sports all the time. I didn't realize this was an exclusive Miami stream. I'm sorry about that, but I guess my comment had something to do. Well, we're mixing in college football. People are calling about college football, but I'm trying to limit it to Miami and Clemson. And hopefully there's post-game going on right now on my main channel with my guys. But it doesn't appear so. So I don't know what the issue is there. But I was going to jump on there for some general college football talk to wrap it up. But we got a call coming in, so we'll take that call.
The call will start at the beep.
It's MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, it's Mr. Rubicon.
Mr. Rubicon.
Hey, what's going on, man?
Not too much. Appreciate the call. What's going on?
Just call and talk about my Canes.
Yeah, so what do you think?
I think if we were ever going to beat those guys, it was going to take playing like our hair is on absolute fire for 4 quarters. Some people said, you know, one of the big difference between Clemson and Miami is Clemson is going to play like they've been there before, and Miami has to be calm and everything else. I totally disagree with that statement. You don't knock off teams you shouldn't unless you play like your hair's on fire and ride the wave of emotion the entire game. I don't think you could come out even kill, not to say not fired up, but just like not, living on the edge the entire time of the game and using that momentum and everything else. You have to live that way to knock off number 1. As far as like being out coached, out talented, all that stuff, it's totally true. But consider Clemson has had this staff together for how long?
Well, for a college staff, it's been forever because most coaches can't keep staffs together because guys are flying all over the place. But he's been able to keep that staff together for a long time. Obviously, Venables has been there for 10 years.
I called you after last year's North Carolina game, and I complained. And I would have called you earlier, but I couldn't have gotten through. I totally disagreed with the higher ranking. Yes, I thought it was an absolute reach. I did not want to go through growing pains. Yeah. Not that Manny can't be a good coach, but I am so sick and tired of going through growing pains as a Miami fan. I wanted someone elite, someone that would come in and build an elite staff. We don't have that. But to think that this offense would come in here with barely any offseason and go, toe-to-toe with Clemson, come on. That was like maybe a 10% chance of that happening. Yeah. As far as the talent gap goes, there's a talent gap there. There is. Clemson has more talent than we do. But I would not say necessarily that they dominated the trenches the whole time, especially not their offensive line. I thought our defensive line had flashes of really, really great play. The difference is that Etienne slips a tackle and takes it 25 yards. There's just nothing you can do. If you want to talk about the talent gap between, say, Etienne and, Cam Harris, okay, we could talk about that because Cam's a good running back. He's a solid, he's going to get a chance in the NFL, but Etienne's a first rounder, and there is a difference. Yeah. Yeah. Next point that I was going to make is the only way to get through this is the hard way. You have to keep banging your head against the wall if you're Miami. You got to go out. You got to beat Pitt. You got to beat all the guys coming up on the roster, and you got to go out and play Clemson and hope to play better against Clemson again at the end of the year. And you know what you got to do? You got to recruit like we're doing. You got to go out and play Clemson against next year and maybe get beat again. And you got to recruit. But bottom line is, you got to be getting to that ACC championship game every single freaking year. And you got to recruit like they do. You keep banging your head against that wall, and eventually you'll get through. It's just like the same situation Clemson went through with FSU. Look at where FSU is now. Look at where Clemson is now.
Yeah.
The only way you get this done is to keep banging your head against the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Keep grinding. Keep going. You cannot say, well, we weren't the flash in the pan season this year, so we're just going to lay down for the rest of the year. No, not happening. It takes producing draft picks. It takes recruiting draft picks. It takes doing it every single year.
Yeah, to your point,
that's what Clemson did.
To your point, when Clemson was so there was a time there when Clemson was clearly inferior to Florida State and weren't even the second best team in the league. But then they got to that cusp of when Jameis was there for Florida State, where Florida State was still the best. Clemson was getting beat down head-to-head by Florida State, but they were beating everyone else. And to your point, they weren't letting that one game get them down. They were still completing seasons in which they beat LSU in a bowl game, they beat Ohio State in a bowl game, and finished in the top 10, even though they got crushed by Florida State. And then they finally hit that 2015 run, and they crossed that path, and they got past them.
They put their foot on their throat, and they never surrendered it. They put a stranglehold on Florida State. They knew to take down the big dog. They had to do that. I didn't mean to cut you off, but that's exactly it. Like, look at, there are lots of schools that do that. That's how they get through the other side. There are teams that consistently every year put in really good years, like say Wisconsin. But Miami's ceiling, in my opinion, is not like Wisconsin's.
No.
If Wisconsin wins 10, 11 games a year for 4 years, they might consistently recruit the top 25 class year in and year out as they're proving it. But if Miami does that, they're going to be recruiting top 10 classes every year. Then you can talk to me about getting over the Clemson hump. But until that happens, we did not hire Nick Saban, a guy that knows how to pull every string, a guy whose coaching Rolodex is deep. We don't have Alabama's money or Texas's money. We can just poach any coach we want to. I tried to tell people this last year. Manny hired a brand new staff. Don't expect him to get it right on his first try ever. This is his first time assembling a staff. Was I surprised Dan Enos was as bad as he was? I mean, that was pretty terrible. But was I surprised that he failed? No. He's not perfect. He's not Vince Lombardi. He's learning. This whole team is learning. We do not have the offensive line to go against those guys. This is like their third offensive line coach in 3 years. They changed the system 3 times. We still have a 2-star tackle out there taking a lot of reps.
Yeah.
This is the first year I can remember our strength and conditioning coach even getting any kind of results. I'll tell you what, if you looked at our defensive line, they still looked the part. We looked big. We looked physical at times. We show flashes. But the offensive line still has a long way to go, and it's going to take a long time. And you know what? It sucks to be patient. I didn't want to have to be patient. But if you're going to blow, if you're going to blow this thing up now, you better not blow it up and go back with another rookie head coach and start from square one all over again. The growing pains suck, but that's what we signed up for when we went with Manny Diaz. We just can't let this beat us going forward. We have to keep banging our head against the wall every single week. I don't know if you got any follow-up question for me or anything. But
Well, I will say that when you make that comment about Wisconsin's almost the anti-Miami. That if you look at Miami over the last 15 years, consistently bringing in top 15 to 20 classes and kind of developing it into, and when I say developing, I'm saying that tongue in cheek, developing it into top 35 teams, that Wisconsin's recruiting, to your point, when you say top 25 or a 25th ranking in the recruitings, that's an excellent Wisconsin class. They're usually, 32, 35, and they coach them up into top 10 or 15 teams. The 4 points that I stated off the top of the show where I felt good about Miami coming into this game, that you might be different this year. And I didn't expect you to win the game. I gave you a 15% chance of winning, but I thought it was going to be closer. I thought it was going to be a fourth quarter game. I thought going into the fourth quarter, it was going to be like a 1 to 2 score game, a 10-point game, something like that. But number one, you got your best quarterback that you've had since, I don't know, Rubicon, fill in the blank. Is it Brad Kaya, or is it because of the running ability before Brad Kaya?
Before Brad Kaya.
Okay.
King's better than Brad Kaya.
Before Kaya. King's better than Kaya. I thought so too, just because of the running ability. Kaya was a statue. Number two.
Yeah, if it breaks down for Kaya, it's over. If it breaks down for King, he can still beat you in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So.
Number two.
Plus, I think he's just as good throwing the ball. So.
Number two, at least going into the game, I thought that there was a separation between what Lashley had proven as a play caller, and not just a play caller, but in regards to what he had prepared the team to do in the up tempo. That I saw that working, but of course you got to convert first downs to keep that going. But I felt good about Lashley as an improvement in the offensive play calling. Number three, I didn't think this would come into play tonight. But you got a guy that's going to make a field goal that's going to win a game, or at least put points on the board when you get in the red zone, as opposed to missing field goals, which obviously, cost you against North Carolina and cost you against Florida last year and other teams. And number four, basically that because of those things, you didn't beat. And we are seeing that Louisville's not that good. And we know UAB's a group of 5 team, and we know Florida State's really bad this year. But you guys might have showed up at this game against Clemson 3-0 in previous years, but you might have won those games by 13, 10, 13. You wiped those 3 teams out. So I just thought maybe things were a little tighter, and you had answered some of the questions where you were really lacking the last couple of years: quarterback, kicker, play caller.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think all of Miami Hurricane fandom is disappointed in what happened as far as the offense is concerned. We definitely would like to see a lot more. But both things can be true. Miami can be both massively inferior to Clemson in many, many different ways. And all those things are better than last year that you mentioned. And Miami can still be a different team. That doesn't mean that, Miami has to drop a game to Georgia Tech, or that Miami has to go drop a game to Pitt next week. Are people expecting it? Of course. That's been their MO for years. But if they come out and they actually take care of business for the rest of the season, they can still be a problem and end up facing Clemson at the end of it. I know that might be really optimistic or whatever, but Miami has football players. There's, other than Clemson, there's really no reason why Miami shouldn't be, with the defense that they have against, non-superstar teams, they should be able to put Miami's offense in situations to win every game from here on out. If they did that, you would say, yes, this Miami team is different than years past. No, they're not a national champion. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not building towards getting there. Oh, I want to talk about back, too. You know, people wanted to say, like, what's your definition of back? And, you know, it's winning national championships or whatever. I don't agree that winning national championships is the barometer for being back.
I don't either. I've said that many times.
A lot of people will kill me for it, I'm sure, but I don't believe that that's the case. If Miami had beat Clemson tonight, they would be back. In this moment, they would have been back.
Well, what if you would have beaten Clemson and lost 3 other games and gone 8-3?
Okay, but I said in this moment.
Okay, in this moment.
If we were standing here having beat Clemson right now at 11 o'clock my time or whatever, we would be back.
Okay, Rubicon, you know I'm going to play devil's advocate just because I can, and if you've left the opening there for me. So when Pitt beat Clemson, when Syracuse beat Clemson, when Iowa beat Ohio State or Purdue beat Ohio State or anybody beat an elite team that had no business otherwise beating them, were they back?
Okay, no, and I'll tell you why. When Iowa knocks off Ohio State, let's just say, where do you rank them?
About where Miami's right now.
Right. And what's the recruiting do?
Yeah, Iowa's recruiting doesn't match Miami's, but Iowa's been at least
now,
as...
But just like the full picture is if Miami had beaten Clemson tonight, they're at the front page. They are actually competing for a national championship at this point. Doesn't matter what next week is, because next week might prove they're not back. But in this moment, as far as national media is concerned, as far as recruiting is concerned, as far as what we're doing in this moment, for right now, back is something that you have right now.
But
and it only applies for those teams that can win national championships.
Okay, but Iowa's actually been a better program the last 15 years than Miami.
Yeah, that's true. But what I'm saying is, like, Iowa knocking off Ohio State doesn't mean they're back. They're just doing what they do.
So you're saying
Iowa.
So you're saying if Miami would have won this game, they would be 4-0. So you're saying that Iowa wouldn't have been back because they were whatever they were at the time, 6-3. And even though they won the big game that week, they still had lost these other games, so they weren't going to contend for a national championship.
Even if they were 1-0 and they were Iowa, right, and they had knocked off number 1 Ohio State,
yeah,
the assumption is still like, oh, Iowa's going to have a nice season. But nobody is realistically saying, like, oh, yeah, Iowa with this recruiting class and the players that they have on their team and, oh, yeah, they're definitely a national championship. And furthermore, Iowa doesn't have a history of being like a traditional power. Like, I could tell you who would be back in those same situations. It's not just Miami.
Okay.
If Texas goes and they're 5-0,
sure, and
they go and play number 1 Oklahoma and they beat them by 10 points, you could say Texas is back in this moment. Like, in this moment, as far as going into next week,
sure,
this program is back on the national register competing for a national championship.
I know where you're going with this whole thing. I get where you're going, and it makes sense, but I'm, again, going to play devil's advocate, not just to be an ass, but because I think it's somewhat legitimate. I think you, just like everybody else, I'm not pointing you out, I do the same thing, but everybody has a threshold of what their context is of college football. And because Miami's not been an elite program since 02, 03, 04 in that range, that's your context of the last time of that being relevant and being near enough that you could say we're back. As opposed to there have been times when Purdue was a national championship contender. We just don't remember it because it was so long ago that it was in the late 60s. Yes. So I get your point, but I guess I just have to see a lot more.
If Tennessee had beaten Georgia tonight, I feel like they're back. Like, I don't think you got to have a ring to necessarily prove, that your program is back. Are they like, yes, but like just like the college football rankings. Once we get new information, we reassess the situation.
Sure.
I'm not like against that. You know what I mean? Like, okay. New data is now put into the algorithm. Okay, maybe they're just what we thought they were. But But what I'm saying is like, if Tennessee had knocked off Georgia today,
Yeah.
and they had done it in a good fashion,
Yeah.
they would be the talk of the SEC.
Sure.
At least until next week when they go lose to whoever it is they're going to lose to, or
Sure.
you get my point, or maybe they win. Who knows? But for right now, they're back.
Well, to
And
your
the same thing will happen with LSU next
Yeah.
year. If they start off 4-0 and they go beat Georgia on the road or something, is LSU back? Yeah, right now they're back. They're a problem right now. I guess that's just my definition. Back is like it's right now.
Okay, I've got a different definition. I think of being back. So if I got to see the completion of the season, because to your point, Texas during this downtime, there's been a number of games in which they looked the part early in the season. I remember them having a primetime game against Notre Dame about 5 years ago. They won a thrilling game, and just because it was Notre Dame and it was a primetime game by itself, like Labor Day night, everybody went crazy and Texas is back. Well, by the end of the year, they were 5-7. So they weren't back.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to see it play out for the season.
Okay, fair enough. Because, like, one thing you could say is, like, what do you consider Notre Dame, right? Because they've got a history of winning a bunch of national championships. And even if they win 11 or 0 this year, and they were going to the national championship game, or let's just say the playoffs, they were the 4 seed in the playoffs, and the 1 seed was Alabama. Does anybody believe Notre Dame would beat Alabama?
No.
We would all be like, oh, dude, they're about to get smoked on national TV, right? They would have to win that game. Maybe win a national championship in that situation. But the fact is Notre Dame is competing for a national championship right now. They recruit like it. They hold their ranking. You know, what is it that's missing from those guys? Is it an elite quarterback? You know, is it an elite offensive line? I don't really know. But I don't know. To me, back is competing for national championship because, I don't know, like, it's a weird thing to kind of quantify because, like, take, for instance, the 86 Hurricanes. They didn't win a national championship. How about the 2000 Kings? They didn't win a national championship. You know, technically, 2002 didn't win it, even though, you know, bad flag or whatever. Was that team not up to the standard?
Of course they were. Of course they were. That's why we started out the conference. That's why we started off that part of the conversation by you saying it doesn't have to be a national championship. It doesn't have to be a national championship for me. It has to be that you are. So I cut a video about 6 months ago where I looked at all the elite programs or once elite programs and basically talked about when was the last time this program was down? Because I keep hearing, and I always like to define statements when somebody says so-and-so's back or they say so-and-so's down. I say, okay, what does down mean to you? Down to me means that for a period of time, meaning about 3 seasons at least, you are not competing for a conference championship. You are not in a serious conference championship competition. And then I was gauging when was the last time all these different programs have been down. So if Ohio State, just taking them for an example, you could say Alabama, you could say Clemson. If they go 8-4 next year, and then they pop right back up to where they are the next year, I don't consider them having been down because it wasn't long enough or that they are back.
Interesting. So what does back mean then? Does back just mean you're an elite program?
Well, to your point.
If that's the case, like, consider LSU, right? Like, LSU, they're going to have a down season. We all know why. They lost a bajillion players. But they won a national championship.
Yes.
So, like, what if you're a team like LSU, okay?
Yeah.
You win a national championship.
Yep.
Then you come back this year. Let's say they go, 5-5. I think the SEC played 10 games this year. They go 5-5 this year. Then they pop back into national relevance again, okay, next year. And they make it back to the playoffs.
Yeah.
Okay? And they drop out. They lose a bunch of players again. They go 5-5 again after that. Yeah. Is LSU not an elite program?
Yes, they are.
That's what I'm trying to say. Like, I think the only thing with like back is, are you elite? Are you elite right now?
Yes.
What does it mean to be elite? Well, do you win big games? Do you recruit at an elite level? Are you appearing? Maybe you could say, you know, at the end of the season, are you in a big bowl? Maybe that is something to factor in. I don't know. But right now, are you winning big games right now? Are you recruiting? Is your main goal competing for a national program or championship? Are you an elite program? That's back, right? Are you elite as a program? I don't know. It's interesting. But to me, it's a now thing, because that's the only thing we can know until more data comes in. Like, it's not like a retrospective thing to me, because then you have to discount a lot of things. Basically, LSU's not, back right now, I guess you could say. It's weird. And to me, it's like, how could you say that? Because they're the defending national champ. I know they're going to have a rough year. Or Oklahoma. Like, Oklahoma looks like they're going to have a rough year breaking in a new quarterback, but I have every expectation that they're going to be just fine going into next week.
I consider there to be currently 4 elite programs in college football: Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, and Georgia. Now, if somebody said Oklahoma's elite or LSU's, I wouldn't laugh at them. I'd say, I understand your point, but I don't consider them elite. But I can understand. I could put them in that category as well. When you talk about Texas went to a national championship game in 2009, and then they had a good year in 10, and then they fell off since then. And really, aside from 2017, when they went to a Big 12 championship game and won the Sugar Bowl, they've been a very marginal program, very marginal, losing 5, 6, 7 games a year. So there's your biggest definition of coming back and being back. If they come back this season, well, it's not going to happen this year, doesn't appear. But if they would miraculously win the rest of their games and get to the college football playoff, but let's say they do it next year, I'd say Texas is back. But it wouldn't be because
of the playoffs.
It wouldn't be because of one game, though. I'd have to see the whole season play out.
Okay, fair enough.
That's my thought.
Speaking of the playoff, though.
Yep.
Do you think the Big 12 is done? I know it's probably a little bit early to say that, but it looks like the Big 12 is not getting a team in the playoff.
Not unless Oklahoma State goes undefeated.
Do you think they will?
No. I think.
Neither do I. So Big 12 is probably out.
I
know the Pac-12 is going to start playing some football. Ohio State will be favored to win every single game.
I think there are 6 teams in the Big 12 that can all play each other, and we don't know who's going to beat who week to week. They're all beating each other. 12? Yeah, like Kansas State beat Oklahoma.
I wasn't sure if you said.
Yeah, Kansas State and Oklahoma State and TCU and Texas, and they all look like the same team in terms of quality of play.
Yeah, it looks like a football basketball game, and you don't know who's going to hit that last 3-pointer at the buzzer,
Yep.
It's like March Madness for those guys. So, anyways, I do think Miami will come back next week. They'll play extremely well. Honestly, Clemson, I thought we had a chance. They didn't look their best against Virginia, which unfortunately, I don't think that necessarily helped us, because that gave them a lot to work on and focus on for us. Coming off of a bye, I was really hoping the offense would play a lot better than it did. So that's just a disappointment we got to get over. But looking at ACC football, Clemson is not just the top dog. They are like the top wolf. There's nothing that's going to touch them right now. Yeah. Not in the ACC, unless they just beat themselves. And Miami needed a little bit of that tonight, and Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne were not having it. But the rest of the ACC is very beatable for Miami. They can still be the second best team in the ACC by a wide margin. You know how, when you look at the top 4 teams in the country that you were talking about, the elite teams, okay?
Sure.
There's a clear difference between, number 4 and number 5 sometimes, right?
Yep.
Say Florida is the true number 4 team in the country.
Yeah.
Their defense is terrible. They have a serious flaw. You would not expect them to beat any of the 4 teams above them on any given day, right?
Yep.
But then after that, like the 4 through 10 teams, 4
Yep.
through maybe 12,
Sure.
you know, Oregon's, Penn State's,
Yep.
Florida's, and everything like that.
Yep.
You would not expect the next, you know, let's just call it, you know, let's say a top 35 team. They're pretty decent, but they're nowhere near the top 25, right?
Sure.
Boston College, if you will.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
You would never expect those teams to beat the top 15 teams
Sure.
from 5 to 15. That
Yeah.
next group of 10 programs or whatever. Now, that's not to say it doesn't happen, because of course it can happen.
Yeah.
But there's no reason Miami can't be one of those 5 through 15 teams this year. In fact, they really should be. There could be Clemson, the top dog that beats everybody by 30 points, no matter who it is. There could be Miami that beats everyone else by 10 points, no matter who it is, unless it's Clemson, and everybody else after that.
Well, I completely agree with your point. I just can't yet make that jump to put Miami in that Penn State, Notre Dame 5 to 15 class.
I can understand not doing that now, but what I'm saying is at the end of the year, you wouldn't be surprised if they did.
Nope, I wouldn't be surprised. Nope.
You would say, well, sure, why not? That's a good team. They've got, good players or whatever.
Yeah.
They recruit really well or whatever,
Sure.
And that's what Miami has to focus on. And that's the part I'm talking about where they have to keep banging their head against the wall. It's every single day in practice. They have got to go out there and take that step. Put it out there that you're not going away as a team. You're not going to fade. And be ready to win, what we would say, like the Coastal. Go back to the championship game, play Clemson again. Hell, get beat again. I would have a lot more respect for that team
Sure.
if they just can't get over the Clemson hump. I would rather that be the tag on us. We can't get over Clemson. We can't get over Clemson. We
Yep.
can't get over Clemson. Than be the team that constantly underachieves. Oh yeah, Miami. Well, who are they going to lose to this year? Who's the FIU on this schedule? Who's the Georgia Tech? It would be extremely satisfying to go 10-1, lose to Clemson, be 10-2, and then go play a bowl game against Penn State and beat them. That would be a great year. That would set you up for recruiting.
Yep.
That would get you into that next step. And the other thing is it would give our offensive line another year in strength and conditioning, which, that's the one group on this team that just don't look like, top 5 programs. I'm looking at Auburn's offensive line. They got some dudes on that offensive line that are like, holy crap, what are they feeding these guys?
Yeah.
And Georgia didn't give a crap. Georgia pushed them around the entire time. Georgia looks really good. I think they've got a really good chance, too.
I think so, too.
They got bullies. Their defense is absolutely freaking loaded with NFL players.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out who's not an NFL player on that defense.
I'm with you.
The one thing holding them back is, I don't know what it is. If it's Kirby Smart with the offense, I can't say Kirby Smart is holding back Georgia like a lot of people are, because he's the reason Georgia is so physically dominant like they are right now.
Yeah.
But he needs to evolve to a point where, they're actually dynamic on offense. Sort of like LSU right now, huh? Like the Les Miles LSU.
Yeah. Yep. Well, that's because
They gotta figure
everybody's
that out and take the next step.
well, that's because everybody's looking at perfection, meaning they're looking for the perfect quarterback, they're looking for the perfect coach. Those seem to be the two, lightning rods of the sport, quarterback and coach. And so if your quarterback can do everything well, but he's not an elite runner, then you're looking at everybody else thinking, why can't we have an elite runner? If he was an elite runner, let's get rid of him. Or if your coach has built a program
They have one.
or if your coach has built Yeah, I'm just talking in general. If your coach is Kirby Smart, then you're complaining because the offense isn't as dynamic or as exciting as you want it to be, but he freaking gets the best recruiting classes in the world, and he's coached them up, and you're beating everybody into the ground except for like one key team a year, and you're getting that close, and everybody else in the country would love to be you. But if you're a Georgia fan, you're saying, man, let's get rid of Kirby Smart. Let's get the next, Nick Saban or Urban Meyer, because that's what we need to get over the hump. Where is that guy? And that guy may not exist. You may have the best dude for your program.
Oh, it's so funny to me. Like, people think Miami fans are just like crazy, and we are. Like, it's a part of who we are. I get it. But believe me, there's plenty of crazy to go around in college football. You got Michigan fans that want to fire Harbaugh.
Sure.
Never mind that Harbaugh is like the best possible coach they could ever dream of getting. Yes, does he have his deficiencies? Of course. Can he overcome them? Yes. Give that guy, if an Andrew Luck falls in his lap and he gets to do it, he could get over the Ohio State thing like that, and losing to Penn State this year and Ohio State. Like, watch him go from a 9-4 program to a 12-1 program in 1 year. Wouldn't be surprising at all. Kirby, what's it going to take for him? I don't know. I don't think you could put more talent on the field, though. That's all the talent there is. You have it all. There's no more talent to give you. You can't recruit any better than Georgia has.
So I'm going to cut it. I'm going to cut in here, Rubicon, because what you're talking about right now ties into what we were talking about right off the bat in terms of evaluating programs as elite. And a national championship is obviously the one tangible that you can say, okay, they're obviously elite. They won the national championship. But you talk about Harbaugh. Here's a guy that took over a program going to the next level at San Francisco, that they were going 2-14, and he goes to 3 straight NFC championship games, and he was within one score of winning a Super Bowl, and his quarterback's throwing the ball in the end zone to win a Super Bowl. Now, you can only do so much standing on the sideline. Kirby Smart had a team that outplayed Alabama for 3.5 quarters, and then Tua went nuts and pulled out a 2nd and 26 in overtime. Otherwise, his team was right there. They did enough. They're within a whisker of winning a national championship. So it's not like this coach isn't capable of building a championship-level program. He just didn't get the one play.
Somehow Nick Saban has that magic.
Yeah.
Like, any other coach probably loses that game. I don't think Nick Saban is doing anything other than just kind of getting lucky. Obviously, he's not getting lucky, but in that one moment, it's like, if he had known that Tua Tagovailoa was going to go in there and dominate Georgia, don't you think he would have played him?
Sure.
A lot more?
Yeah.
He was being a conservative coach, too. He rolled the dice and came up with the 7. Sometimes there's luckier people out there. I don't know about you. I have never won a raffle my entire life. My wife wins them all the time.
Yeah, it takes no talent to win a raffle. We're all doing the same thing.
Is in those Mississippi State games, Ole Miss games, where he gets taken to the limit, his team is better. When you get to a national championship game, typically you got 2 teams that are really good. Nick Saban does it every single year. So maybe it's the character of his team, knowing that that's the expectation. But it could be next year, a really good Washington Huskies team, a really good Oregon team that's going to go play. They're putting it all out on the line.
Yeah, we could sit here. The
reason why Nick Saban wins so many national championships is because he plays in the most national championships.
Yeah, well, we could sit here for the next hour and go through all of Nick Saban's close calls, and most of them have gone his way, and we could tear apart his record, and he's done all the right things and done a great job, but he has had things fall in his favor a number of times. I look at 2015, and almost in the same day, I believe, it might have been a week separated, the thing that separated Ohio State, which won a national championship the year before and may have had the most talent in the country that year and started 10-0. And Nick Saban was that Ohio State would have won the Big Ten and gone to the playoff, but in a game that was completely unrelated to them, the Michigan punter dropped the ball, and the Michigan State kid, when he threw it up in the air, I don't know if you recall the play I'm talking about. Anyway, if the Michigan punter just merely fumbles the snap and falls on the ball, the game's over. But he decides to like whirl around like a knucklehead and throw the ball with two hands up in the air. The Michigan State kid catches it, runs for a historic touchdown with no time on the clock. Michigan State wins that game. Therefore, they win the Big Ten and not Ohio State. Meanwhile, in an unrelated game to Alabama, because they had lost head-to-head to Ole Miss is playing at Arkansas. And the only reason Arkansas wins is because Hunter Henry on a 4th and 16 catches a ball, knows he's going to get tackled, just whips the ball over his head. Alex Collins finds it in a pile of players and runs for a touchdown. And Arkansas beats Ole Miss, which knocks Ole Miss out of the SEC title game and sends Alabama there. Otherwise, Nick Saban doesn't win a national championship.
This is our sport. This is so crazy. The fact that this is our sport, that scenario that you just laid out. Exactly.
Yeah.
This is so crazy. I love that Nick Saban can have, and you want to talk about close calls too. Like, think about this. Like, Nick Saban arguably had one of the best teams in the country, but one crazy night in Tuscaloosa and Johnny Football with a hot hand ends it all. You know?
Yeah, but they won the national championship that year.
I'm just saying, like,
they still won the national championship.
Happen on a hot hand or something like that in this sport.
But that didn't affect his team. They still won the national championship. Yeah, that actually turned into
it's like things that you just don't expect happen all the time in the sport.
Well, actually, the crazy thing that happened 1 year later was the kick 6 by Auburn that knocked Alabama off of getting into the playoff or getting into the BCS championship game, most likely. You know, in 2017, Alabama lost to Auburn in the Iron Bowl, and by all rights should have been left out of the playoff because they didn't win their conference or even get to the conference championship game. But the playoff committee put them in, and they won the national championship. They were given an opportunity that nobody else would have been given, most likely.
Probably. But it's that reputation and the fact that they get in because everyone knows who they are.
There you go. There you go.
So, I mean, the eyeball test doesn't lie either. Like, well, I guess sometimes it does lie, but, you know, I mean, that's a big part of this sport. It's all subjective to some point. So, until they play the game anyways. So, all right, man. Well, I better get my kids in bed. They keep screaming at me. So.
Absolutely, Rubicon. Thanks for the call, man.
I'll catch you next time. All right, bye.
Sounds good. All right, everyone. It's been a good time talking Miami Clemson in particular, college football in general. Check out my guys over on the main channel. Please subscribe to both. Please, I'm asking, even if you don't like Miami, that you subscribe here. It just helps build the channel. And that's the vision. I've quit my job. I don't have a day job, which was actually a night job. After 19 years, quit it, pouring myself into this, taking a huge risk. So I'm trying to drive this as best I can. And I appreciate all of your support here at MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football Miami. We are going to flood this channel with content. And I know that some of you didn't necessarily appreciate the Clemson perspective, but I think if you'd really soak it in and think about it, that you would like to get the perspective of the opponent. And maybe we'll continue to do that depending on the opponent. Obviously, the bigger game, the more you want to hear from the other side. If you're playing fill in the blank, if it was a typical year and you're playing an FCS team and a couple of group of fives, maybe you don't necessarily want to hear from them. But if you're playing the big games in the ACC with North Carolina, Pitt, and others coming on down the road, Virginia Tech, then we want to supply that analysis from the other side. You learn about the opponent and about their team from their fan base. And if you're not subscribed to my main channel, even if you just love Miami and all you want to hear about is Miami, 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 keep it right here, of course. But check out the main channel and please give me a sub. That would be exceptional. Like the videos, please. Share them on social media. Consider this. I only have so much influence on social media. Only so many people know who I am and know what we're doing here. So please share the videos because there are people that follow you on social media, whether that be on Twitter or Facebook, that have no idea who I am and will not find me otherwise, except for with your help. Thank you so much for the Super Chat contribution coming in from Andy Case. Thank you so much, Andy. Appreciate that. We got Nate coming in late. Good to see you. Late, you're not supposed to ever be late, but you're late tonight. All right. Good to see everyone. Keep it locked in for Miami football coverage. Hate to go with 163 on the line, but we've been rocking it for 2 hours and 11 minutes. And please check out my guys talking Florida State Notre Dame post over on the main channel. And we are going to slice and dice college football and all the things that went on this weekend. Give me 2 seconds. Hang on. That's what I was thinking about working on. How about this? See if you guys would be interested in hearing this analysis. Stats, facts, and trends from the weekend. Collecting all the interesting stats, facts, and trends that I can for the weekend and maybe making that a weekly post on Sunday or Monday. Stats, facts, and trends. Weekend stars, which is pretty obvious in some cases. But a lot of guys, I'll be watching a game and I'll think, nobody knows who that dude is. And he just had a strip sack that won the game. He saved the game with a strip sack. Hardly anybody knows who this guy is. But outlining the stars of the weekend. How about this one? Stock market watch. Which teams are trending up? Who's trending down? Stock market watch, college football style. Brandon says, do it. The only thing that makes me a little bit leery is every time I throw out ideas of videos, everybody typically says, do it, do it, do it, do it. And then I do a video and it's got like 87 views. That's an exaggeration, but it's got like 300 views and that's not good enough. And of course, my Heisman watch. I used to do, somebody reminded me of this today, that years ago I used to do a Heisman watch all the time. And I could care less about the Heisman myself, even though I think it's the most prestigious award in sports. I'm just not into it, but I used to do a Heisman watch, and then I would have my selection for the Heisman, and I would evaluate the Heisman, and people would love it. And I haven't talked about the Heisman Trophy forever. So maybe I'll make my top 5 Heisman list after this week's action. Again, right here at MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Please like, comment, share the videos out on social media, and subscribe. Hit that bell for the notifications as well. Check out my guys on the main channel right now talking Florida State, Notre Dame, and the world of college football. And if it wasn't so late, I was going to jump on after them. But shoot, I got videos to cut. We'll see you next time. Keep it locked in.